Hey, how are you all?
I'm fine. How you doing?
Good. Sorry, I was running late, or we were
Oh,
running.
no. Everything is okay. Before we get started, I need you to help me pronounce your wife's name because I don't want to get it wrong.
Yep, it's Kanika.
Kanika. Okay. How you doing, Kanika?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, great. You still not mad at me from the exercise thing we did last summer, are you?
No.
I'm just talking.
she is
Well,
she lying, man.
she lying. Well, welcome to our show. I appreciate you guys coming on. This is It's Funny Now, Black Marriage Chronicles. And it's our goal here is to talk to couples who have been married, have been in it for a while, who got some skin in the game, to hopefully drop some jewels to other people who are either currently going through some stuff or people who are about to get married and they'll know, like, hey, it's not a walk in the park, but you can make it work if you put in, if you can, it can work if you put in the work. You know, as Dr. Ramsey always say, if you don't water a plant, it's just not going to grow. So you have to water the plant. But again, thank you guys for coming on. This is Dr. Ramsey. She is a licensed therapist and marriage counselor. So she's here just to when you guys come up with things for the topic of the show, to kind of break those things down for people who are watching, just to kind of give them some context. So we're going to have some fun as well. I got a couple games here, which I want to introduce to you now before we get started. Dr. Ramsey, you can go ahead and say hello.
Hello to both of you. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Yeah.
Pretty good. Nice to meet you.
All right, so we have a game here, and the games that I'm showing you are all inspired by Black game artists. They created these games. This is called Culture Tags. So you can kind of guess what this is about. We have several topics. If you pick this game, which I need you guys to decide that before we actually get started. If you pick this game, you can get a lifeline if you want to call somebody, but I need you to put them on like FaceTime or something like that, just so I can see, because they can't Google anything. I want them to Google, want them to cheat. So this is Culture Tags. And then we have a game called Naughty Nice. If you want to do that one. And then this is a game that's called Tonight Let's Talk. Now, this was a game pretty much you guys would like do it with one another to kind of spark conversations, but I'm going to ask the questions, but it'll be asked at both of you as if you were asking one another. So I just want you to decide which game you want to play.
Whichever one.
We played culture tags before, so I guess you could pick one of the other two.
What's the third one?
So this one is called Tonight Let's Talk.
Want to go with that one?
Okay.
All right, great. Okay, well, let's just get right into it. Introduce yourselves to us. We just like to know a little bit about your marriage, how long you've been married, are there kids involved? And go for it. Like, how did you guys meet?
Yeah. You want me to?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, I'm happy to. I'm Omari Jackson, and this is my wife, Kanika Jackson. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and do I tell them about you, or do I tell them?
I'm from Compton, California.
Oh, okay.
And we met because my good friend from high school, or since high school, I should say, is first cousins with her. And so I met her at her grandmother's funeral in, was it 2005? 2005. We got married in 2008, so we dated for a very short period of time, and then we were engaged. We dated for a little less than a year.
Long distance.
Long distance, exactly, yeah. She was living in LA, and I was living in Detroit. And then we were engaged for a year and a half, and then we've been married now since 2008, so that would put us at 15 years this upcoming June 14.
Oh, wow, okay. How did the long distance relationship work? Like, was that tricky at times?
I don't think so, because at the time his mom was working for Delta Airlines, so he was able to fly out at least once a month. Okay. And then I think if I remember correctly, I went out there to Detroit like twice.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yes.
Okay, all right. How did you like the D, since you're from Compton? How did you like Detroit?
It wasn't new to me because my father was from Detroit, and I have family there. Most of his family is there, so I've been going to Detroit all of my life. So it was different going as an adult, hanging out, but it wasn't new to me.
Okay. What about you, Omari, to Compton? I mean, was California new to you outside from, because you said you were there for a funeral, correct?
she was in Detroit when I
She
met
was
her.
in Detroit for a funeral. Okay, all right.
But Compton, like you said, LA itself was new to me. I had never gone to the West Coast prior to dating her. I traveled a lot of places in the country, but never to the West Coast. And so that was cool because that was my entry into the West Coast. And I feel like since then, I've been to several places on the West Coast.
Okay, okay.
I love LA. I feel like we could live in LA if the cost of living wasn't so high.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been to LA a couple times. My daughter actually stays in, I want to say Stockton, California. Yeah. So I've been to LA.
Isn't that in Northern California?
Yeah. I've been to LA a few times myself. Nice people. It's a lot of homelessness there though, you know. Yes, but it's definitely a nice time. I had a ball every time I've gone. I've had a great time. Yeah. So you guys have any children?
We have one son, an 11-year-old.
11-year-old. Okay. So I do have some questions here that I kind of wrote down. So we'll ask those and then we'll get into some other stuff. And you guys, so what was the time between when you met and you guys said you had a long distance relationship for a minute, and then between the time you got engaged and then got married?
Yeah, so we met, I think, probably about 2.5 years between meeting and getting married.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Ramsey, I always say that I think 2 years is pretty much enough time for couples to kind of figure out what they want to do, and look like they were right there. What is your take on that?
Well, for me and my husband, we actually started dating October of 2005 and engaged February 2006 and married July 2006. And we've been married 17 years this year. So I think technically, and I think it depends on where you are in your life. Like for us, I was in my late 30s. He was in his early 40s. It was a second marriage for both of us. So we kind of had been through some things relationship wise. And so for us, and we were, in the same church. So we knew each other from church. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like, a cold meet kind of thing.
Okay.
So I think, depending on where you are in your life, 2.5 years, I think that's a pretty good time frame for, especially, like I said, if you've been through some things, you kind of know what you want. You've worked on some of those challenges that we deal with in relationships when we're younger. Mm-hmm. So I think that's appropriate depending on where you are in your life at that time.
Okay. All right.
Now, if you're 18 or 19 or 20, that might be a different discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What attracted you to him, Kanika, and then Omari, what attracted you to your wife?
If it's okay, before we answer that, Dr. Ramsey just said something that made me think a little bit about our relationship. And I think our relationship felt in the beginning more like a whirlwind because now that I think about it, even though I think knew each other for about a year before we got engaged, mm-hmm. We were officially, now that I think about it, it's crazy, I forgot this, that we were only officially dating for about 4 months.
Okay.
So we had talked long distance and were interested in each other. And I think dating-ish, like I had gone out there to visit her a couple of times, and we talked on the phone all the time. But it wasn't until August of 2006 mm-hmm. that we actually became an official couple. And so from August to December was only, months. And so I think that made it feel more like a whirlwind to her and also to her family.
Yeah.
Kind of right. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's stay right there. So how did you guys get pushback from your family on this, on either side?
Mine.
Yeah. Fill us in. Can you give us a little context on that? How did that work?
I'll just say in a nutshell, my family acted a fool. Even though I was in my late 20s at this point, I was in church, so I was saved at this point, had a career. They felt like I was acting desperate, especially my mother. Okay. She felt I was acting desperate and was not ready to get married. So she was not supportive throughout the whole process. And my brother, I had a pushback from him as well. I think that, he was kind of on the same page as my mom, mm-hmm. where they felt like I was just going through some extremes, but mm-hmm. We got through it, but it was a rough engagement.
All right, so you guys already know the name of the show. It's funny now, but so was that one of those times for you, like where you can look back on it and laugh now? Or no, it's still not funny.
Sometimes I waver between laughing and retroactively getting mad.
Okay. Question: Where? So I have to assume, Omari, that this might have been a little uncomfortable for you. Like, where were you at? Where was your headspace at that time?
It wasn't really that uncomfortable for me because I was
Okay.
thinking, well, it's cool. My philosophy is crazy because this is kind of how I am now with her family as well. And I don't think that we have like any deep issues. I just don't think that we're really, that close knit. But I'm
You
always
mean
like,
you're not that close knit with your in-laws?
I mean, I think we're close enough, but it's
Okay.
not to the point where we don't. How do I say it? So even though I consider her brother, a close relative, I don't see her brother the same as I see my brother. If that makes sense.
Is that as a result of how things played out initially? Okay.
I think it would be like that anyway.
Yeah, but I think that I would probably feel like, say, for instance, even with your mother, because her brother, as she's telling you, is not. I think that I don't think that he has any issues with me, at least that he's let me know of. But I think he's just kind of a to himself kind of person, if that makes sense. So I don't take personal offense. I think he's like that with anyone. Is
he Kanika, is your brother older or younger than you?
He's 6 years older than me.
He's 6 years older than you. Oh, so you're your little sister. So of course I can see why he might have felt that way. Maybe. Yes. No. What do you?
I mean, possibly. I just and then like Omari was saying, just my brother's personality.
Okay.
He's more of a person that is, I would say, more of a loner and kind of himself.
Okay.
He and I don't even like talk a whole lot, unless it's like something really business related or concerning our mom.
Okay. All right.
But he loves his family, and I know if I ever needed anything from him, I could call him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why I say it's not personal at all.
Yeah.
But he just don't have that brother relationship like I have with my brother. In the same way, I don't have that relationship with her mother that I had with with my mother.
Okay.
So I think that I've always said this. This is what I was going to say before. I've always said that I don't care if her family likes me, because my family likes me. You know what I mean? And so I don't look to her family for that kind of family support. If they're there and they like me, cool.
Yeah.
Now if they don't, I'm all right with it. And so that's how it was when we got together. That I didn't really feel like her mother and her brother liked me. And I think it's different now. I don't think it was that they didn't like me. I just think it was a lot for them
to take in. Yeah. Just your family dynamic, like Kanika says she has a brother. Do you have any other siblings? And then Omari, what about your family dynamic? Like, where do you rank at as far as siblings go?
Yeah, I have a brother and a sister. I'm the youngest, and then we have a sister who's the middle child, and then my brother is the oldest child.
Okay. What about you, Kanika?
Just my older brother.
Just your older brother? Okay. All right. Yeah, Dr. Ramsey, does that, because I think I asked you this before about another couple. Does the hierarchy of how you where you fall at in your family play a part in how you connect with one another?
It can, for sure. The oldest child technically may have had a lot of responsibility, so they're used to telling people what to do. The youngest child may have gotten a lot of grace as opposed to the older kid. So it just depends on the family. If it's an only male child, only daughter, so it just depends on a lot of those things, and it can really impact how we interact and engage with one another. Those dynamics can play a role in our relationships, for sure.
Okay. All right. So back to the question I was asking: what attracted you to him, Kanika, and Omari? What attracted you to her? Like, was it like love at first sight? Because you got to kind of describe it was kind of like a whirlwind, like So what was the initial attraction?
Oh no, he asked
all couples, when I ask that question, look at one another. What?
He asked you first.
I think for me, I wasn't when he and I met. So it was like during the time of it was the same day of my grandmother's funeral. I don't remember actually seeing him at the funeral, but because he and my cousin are good friends, he was over my aunt's house after the funeral and the repast. And so when I met him at the house, I really wasn't even thinking anything romantic. We just had good conversation and I enjoyed talking to him.
Okay.
So initially I was thinking, oh, my cousin's friend is really cool. I could see us all hanging out when, I come to town to visit. And so he and I initially exchanged email addresses, and then it turned into phone conversations. And we just really connected really well. And I found myself growing to like him even more, just based on our interactions. But in the beginning, I wasn't thinking anything other than, oh, he's cool.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Omari?
In the beginning, I liked her. I didn't look at her as like a platonic friend at all.
Okay. You was all in day one, huh? You was like, I know that's gonna be my wife.
Yeah.
Is that Kanika, is that attraction still there? Like you still find that attraction about your husband? You still find that there?
I do. I think because we started off with a really solid friendship,
Mm-hmm.
and that emotional and kind of intellectual connection is really big for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no matter what. So because he and I started off with such a, I think, a robust friendships where we would just talk for hours, I feel like we still have that connection where we can just talk about anything, and just like, I never felt, typically I'm guarded when I meet people for the first time, and I never felt like I had to put up a wall with him. I just always felt comfortable to just be me.
Okay.
And so I still have that.
All right. Well, that's good. Do you guys have like so how long you been married again? I think you told, was it 15? 15 years? Okay. In a 15-year marriage, how do you communicate to your partner, I need self-care, me time? Like, how is that something that you guys do? And how do you communicate that to one another?
I think that I'm pretty upfront with it, and I'll say, I don't necessarily say I need me time, but I make sure that I take my time, and I let her know that, that is my me time. And so, Al, that I've gotten into fitness in the more recent years, and for me, that's my me time.
Okay.
So, no matter where we are, I'm going to, get up and go to work out. If that is, run outside, or if that is to, go to the gym in the hotel that we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually do it before she wakes up.
Okay. Same way. That's what I do with my wife before she wakes up. I'm at the gym and back in the room before she rolling over like, oh, you done? Yeah, I'm done. Let's go. We can start the day. Yep. That's good.
I think even in some ways I do have to, I'm always sometimes I do have to say it now that I think about it. Because I was going to say that she is a night owl. We both are night owls and enjoy staying up. But if I stay up really late, that impacts my ability to work out, as well as it impacts the quality of my workout. Absolutely. And so I will have to tell her, and it doesn't always go over, that well, but I have to tell her, like, that's what I do. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I understand that you ain't got nothing to do. You know what I mean? Go to the gym.
Yeah. So what about you, Kanika? How do you receive that, and then how do you communicate to your husband, like, hey, I need some me time, self-care time? Do you have that?
I'm working on that. I don't know that I do the best job with that, just because there's so much going on, and I feel like I always have something to do. So I work full time. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I'm finishing my doctorate. And so I'm trying to be more intentional about taking time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I always communicate that the best way. It usually comes out where I have an attitude or I'm snapping about something, and I may not realize in that moment that maybe I need a moment to myself. But I'm trying to do a better job of reflecting on, okay, why did that just irritate you? Or why did you respond that way? And try to take those moments for myself, even if it's, read a book or take a nap every now and then, or just getting out. So I've been trying to do a better job also with just, building my own community. We've been here nearly 7 years, but, community has been a challenge for us. So okay. I've joined Mocha Moms of Greater Baltimore, just so I can try to build like my own individual friendships and have things that are just for me, so that I can, have that time of autonomy away from my family, and then come back a bit more refreshed. So it's more of a work in progress for me than him.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Ramsey, like, just touching on what they mentioned, how important is for couples to have like say outside interests and do self-care time. And they have a child, 11-year-old son, right? Yeah. So they have a son as well. So how important is that? I mean, and then Kanika said there's a little trouble of communicating that. She understands, she's self-aware that she knows when that happens and she addresses like, but how important is that?
I think it's very important. And depending on your roles and responsibility, as far as like even caregiving with minor children, it makes it a little bit tougher. If she's more of the hands-on caregiver as opposed to Omari, then it makes it tougher for moms, because when we look at the list of people that we take care of, we tend to push ourselves to the back, and we just, keep going and going and going. I think with couples, even though, we're taught in the Bible to leave to cleave, it's very important that we explore opportunities to maintain some sense of independent activities outside of like, you don't want your spouse to be your sole source of entertainment and fulfill, they should, not complete you, but fulfill you. But if that's your whole center, if something were to happen, God forbid, and they're not there, now they've taken a part of your center with them. So it's important that we find interests outside of our relationships. Number one, because it helps us to have a space to continue to grow as women and men. So we don't always get that when we need to get it, because you just have your head down doing what you got to do. But it is very important, and I'm glad that you're asking yourself questions that a lot of people don't ask. Kanika, is why am I triggered by this? Why does this bother me? Why am I responding this way? And a lot of times people don't even make those connections to say, well, you know what, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, I'm doing too much, I need to take a break. But then for you to connect it to the fact that you have to actively take time to make sure you're replenishing, refreshing yourself. And I do like the fact that you also said you're trying to find your own sense of community outside of your family. You're still a great wife and mom, but you are, at the end of the day, you are a woman first. You know what I mean? So it's important that we try to, and I think women we do the worst job at that, especially when we're mothers. So it's important that we try to create that opportunities, and even our spouses to encourage us, hey, go do something you like to do, or, to try to create that space for us to let us know it's okay. I'm not neglecting you as a husband. You're not neglecting our child, but it's okay for you to do some things for you and come back, because it makes her, how they say, happy wife, happy life kind of thing. If she's, in a good place and refreshed, then she can give more to the family. Yeah. So yes, it's definitely important on both sides that we have some sense of independence within our relationships.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we got a couple questions here we're going to ask from the game talk tonight. Let's talk. All right. So question: what do you feel is the weakest part of your relationship?
I think communication is something we're consistently working on. I think a lot of times we have things in our heads and we expect the other person to just know that was in our head, as opposed our heads, instead of making sure that we say, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what I would like from you, or that's a constant challenge for us.
Okay. How do you guys, you guys been in the game, got a lot of skin in the game, you've been in it 15 years. When moments like that come up, how do you navigate that? What is the process? I mean, is it like, okay, we just not talking for a minute until you get yourself together, or hey, sit down, I need to talk to you? Like, what's that process? Because I think we, as couples, because even I do it with my wife and we do it with one another, where, like you said, it's in your head and you just automatically assume they should know what's going on. My wife, the other day, I'm just going to give an example. And I got it though. She's been doing a lot at work and like really been stressful. She had to actually, like lay some people off and everything like that. So that really impacts her, because a lot of these people she knows personally. So I was talking on the phone to her, but I was talking about something else. But I heard her say, "Oh, I thought you wanted to go out." So of course I was like, no, I was talking about this, and I just went on with the conversation, but I heard her say that. So I just took that upon myself. We went out and I told her, I heard you. And that did wonders for her, because that wasn't what my intent when I'm doing a phone call, but I heard her. You know what I'm saying? So I get what you're saying. Like, it's in your head, and then sometimes they give you those signs and clues, and we don't pick up on them, and then they get mad, because that clearly, that in times past, that would have turned into something. But I heard her. I ain't saying I'm gonna always get it right, but I did hear it at that time, and it's like, okay, let me take some action on that. But how do you guys navigate that?
I think we're still figuring that part out.
Okay.
Quite honestly, I mean, we do have times where we will talk about something right away. And I would say quicker than in the beginning of our marriage. So I'm more the emotional one who will hold on to things. So I can get annoyed and say, I'm cool on you for a couple hours. And he's like that. But I think now I'm doing a better job, even if I am not ready to talk in that moment, saying I need a minute. So that our talks are more effective. But it's still a work in progress, I would say.
Yeah. You know, I always say, listen to understand and not to respond. You know, that's kind of the motto I live by, even in my own marriage. Because we had a communication problem at first, and I'm not saying it's the greatest, but it has gotten a lot better, you know, and that has been my approach. Listen to listen to understand and not to respond. And when I've done that, most of the time that when I've done that, whatever she was trying to communicate to me, my response is generally different. Where before I was just waiting to say what I needed to say and ain't heard nothing she said, and now it's not a conversation. We're just going back and forth. So what are your thoughts, Dr. Ramsey?
Communication tends to like trump a lot of things in a lot of relationships for various reasons. And I, what you just described is listen to understand and not to respond. It's like a skill called active and reflective listening, which most of us don't have a mastery of that. Like, that's something that has to be taught. When we communicate, most of our communication is perception. And so what you're saying is making me feel is how I'm internalizing it. And that comes from my experiences, my pain, my trauma, my values. It comes from a lot of places when we talk to one another. And, I was like you, Kanika, I could be annoyed by something. And in the beginning of our marriage, I cannot talk to you for 2 days and maybe 3. And, I had to learn that was not, because my husband would, it was like that little nitpicky arguing kind of stuff that got on your nerves after, like, why is this going on so much? But he could wake up the next day and be like, good morning, baby. And I'm like, baby, like, did you see, like, you made me mad last night. No, good morning, baby. But he over it. So I had to ask God to really work with me on that, to kind of understand why I'm being triggered to that level. And really help me to kind of like put things in perspective and not hold on. Cause it's, after a day, it really is just ridiculous. So I try not to now. I don't carry that at all, because in my rep, people know me to be a person to not hold grudges, and so why am I holding a grudge against or holding on to anger against the person who I know loves me unconditionally and does everything that he can for me and to make me happy. So he doesn't deserve that. So I had to kind of check myself on that and ask for some help to the Lord. So definitely, that can be something challenging to navigate, and sometimes, like, if you have an alpha female and an alpha male, if you have, a whole lot of situations that can play a role into how we engage with one another. And so that active and reflective listening piece is a very good tool to use. So you're hearing what I'm saying, not to respond, but to kind of, you're able to reflect back what you heard me say. And that also keeps you more in tune to opportunities, like Al said, to pick up on things that they don't say. Like, he picked up in that moment that his wife needed a break and she needed to go out. So it helps you to be more in tune that way when you see things and hear things, because you don't, life happens, you do miss a lot of times. So it's very important to kind of observe your partner from the things that they don't say, not always from what they do say.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I think it's also important in those moments, like, and then the other person has to give you some grace. They may not have gotten it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just, I didn't hear you, but that doesn't mean you need to be walking around mad with your jaws tight, as my mom used to say, and us not talking. But you know what I'm saying? Like it, and you have to pick your battles, you know, and this is for the audience listening. And for those people, especially who are new to marriage, pick your battles. Everything is not a fight. It don't have to be a fight, because you got an uphill battle. And at some point, while it does go uphill, it starts to level out at some point. And I was reading this book, I think it was called the Love Languages. And
5 love languages.
Yeah. You should not be making the same mistakes in year 5 that you made in year 1. And as you go forward, like, those same mistakes shouldn't happen. But at the end of the day, to your point, Omari, like, you're not a mind reader. Like, we still have to open our mouths and communicate with one another. Neither one of you are mind readers, and we have to talk to one another, you know. So I totally.
I wanted to make that point too. Like, we have to, I used to tell my husband, like, the people in your head is not in the same space as the people in my head. So I don't know what you're talking about. So, you know, just trying to become, and sometimes we have to teach each other that skill, where depending on where we are and how we've learned the skill. Because I do what I do for a living, I'm very used to communicating. And I'll always say, like, he'll never have to figure out what I like, what I don't like, what I need, what I don't need. Because I'm very, you know, because I do this for a living, I've learned to adapt that skill myself and just communicate. You know, even to say, you know what, like, you getting on my nerves right now. Give me a minute. I don't want to talk. So, you know, and so, or if sometimes men can be kind of, I call it him yelling, but he says he's not yelling. His voice is just elevated or whatever. And sometimes that gets on my nerves. A lot of men do it. It gets on my nerves. So I have to say, okay, since he's not hearing me say, don't do that, I'm just going to not talk to him for a minute. And then he'll be like, oh, you're not talking to me? No, I'm not. Just till you figure it out. Then I'll pick back up later on and talk to you. So it's kind of like, you know, I'm going to give you a moment to kind of really figure out why we here right now, and then we'll resume. So it's just kind of really like learning your partner and being able to be safe to say those things, because that's where that really, that vulnerable communication comes from, people feeling safe to say and be who they are and what they want to say, knowing that this person is going to still love me after I say what I have to say or share what I need to share with them.
Yeah.
So it creates those opportunities for safe space.
Okay, so here's another question. Fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. I irritate you most when. I didn't pick this question, and I didn't know we was going. My wife said, she's like, you got your cars ready? I said, yeah, let me go ahead and sort everything out. So I just shuffled them up. But okay.
Yeah. But I was joking. That was mine. I said I irritate her most when I exist. No, I feel like I irritate her most when I laugh at something that she doesn't think is, that she thinks is funny, or when I don't take something as seriously as she'd like me to take it.
Okay. All right. What about you, Kanika?
I irritate you most when I'm not clear about what I'm feeling.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I can understand that. All right. Third question. What's one thing I could do to earn more of your respect? Explain.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Because I don't think there's anything. I feel respected by her. Aside from, you know, any other, you know, challenge or, you know, complaint or whatever you like to call it, I don't think I ever feel that you don't respect me.
Okay.
Even if I feel that you are being disrespectful, you know, I don't know. Am I making sense? That I feel like she can be.
It makes perfect sense to me.
Not disrespect me. Like, I feel like she still regards me for, you know, who I am. If that is, you know, a Christian, a husband, a father, an employee. I still feel like she values me and regards me well with those. There just may be times where I feel like, her tone is off, or either the choice of words she used aren't exactly what I, preferred, or something like that.
I do feel like you respect me overall. I think that perhaps you would appreciate it. I don't know if that's the right word, but appreciate it if you saw me, I guess, being more self-assured, perhaps.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't have to be that.
Certainly.
Kanika, that takes me back to what you talked about a little while ago. Just making sure that you have space for just to explore a lot of that for you, because if you're struggling in that area, you taking a little bit more time to have those times for yourself to explore some things about you will help you in that regard. And I said, when you get to a place where you can be authentically who you are, you can show up anywhere and just adjust yourself accordingly to the situation, but always be authentically who you are. But that's something that we all have to have a journey of that. We all have to take some time to explore and understand who we are. And, when we look at our roles as mother and wife, and if you're working outside the home and all those things that we do, that becomes our core, and you lose who you are as a woman in the crossfires of that. So it's important. I'm not sure how old you are right now, but I did notice, in doing therapy, when I meet women between the ages of 40 and 50, and for some even later than that, once our kids start getting older, they don't need us as much, and things start to change and shift. We feel a sense of something pulling away or at us, and we kind of don't really know what that is, but it's really doing some work on us internally, and we have to try to figure that out. And oftentimes we don't really get it for a while, so I would say, just based on what you shared a little earlier, to really kind of find a space to make that a priority for yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Has either of your definition of marriage changed since you've been married? Like what you expected from the onset versus what it is now? And how has that changed? How and why?
For me, I think I recognize more of the business aspect of it now than I did when I was earlier on. So, say for instance, when I was earlier on, I was like, I don't understand why people, get prenups. What I mean? Like like you love that person, you trust that person, like y'all both, keep Christ at the center of your relationship and all those kind of like idealistic things. But now we don't have a prenup. Neither of us had anything when we got married. We still ain't got nothing now. And so, but I understand it. And I don't think it's a bad thing at all. What I mean? Like, and I said that because say for instance, something does go awry in a relationship, and she and I never, discuss divorce. But some people have brought to the table something different than, other people. And that's not fair to say that person gets a piece of what you brought to the table if you didn't earn it while you all were together, or either if you look at inheritances. So say for instance, when my father passes away, I will receive an inheritance. And if I'm not alive, I ask that inheritance go to my son, not to her. Now, that's not to say that, my son shouldn't, support his mother, shouldn't help her, whatever it is. And also, if he's a minor, then she will be responsible for those funds. And I completely think it's fine for her to use them for her and his living expenses. But at the same time, that is my father. You know what I mean? And I don't know that I think like a large inheritance should go to her just because she married me, if that makes sense.
Okay.
There's absolutely another thing that couples don't realize, because we get, we're very emotionally in tune when you talk about marriage, but there is a business side to relate to marriage for sure. Like finances is one of those top 5 reasons why people,
Divorce.
marriages end and divorce, because we don't have an understanding of where we stand with that, with credit, with life insurance, with, all those things, how we manage money and I've worked with couples, a couple before specifically. I remember, he was a young man. His mother was an attorney, and he was, building his career. She wanted him to have a prenup because she knew, like, in her mind, I know potentially where my son is going to be. And so even with that, and the fiance didn't understand that at all. So I was trying to help them navigate through that. And, but I also was able to see some other issues with her that, I was like, run, kind of thing. But so I think you're right. There is a business side to marriage, and we have to embrace all of it and just have open conversations about that aspect too. It's not just about the intimacy and, the quality time. It's about everything that's going to shape our family. It's about all of that.
Yeah. What about you, Kanika? Has your definition of marriage changed versus where before you guys got married, what your expectation was? And I didn't bother to ask you guys, are your parents together? Are they married? Are they still alive? Like, what's that dynamic?
My father passed away when I was 17. So he's never met my father.
Okay.
My mom now.
And my mother just passed in October of 2022. She and my father were married until she passed.
Okay. All right. So what about your I'm sorry to hear that about your
yeah, absolutely.
Both of you. Yeah. Definitely have my condolences. So Kanika, what about you and your definition of marriage? Like, what has it changed since you've been married? Your expectations? Did you have any going in?
Sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable in the chairs. I guess it's changed a little bit. I think my expectations have changed somewhat, and maybe when we were first married, my expectations may have been a little more ideal about, our interpersonal interactions and just how I never thought that it would be perfect and that you wouldn't have conflict and things you would have to work through. But I think when we first got married, because we were, both in our 20s, I didn't think about how you changed. So the things that you cared about or that you liked or was striving towards then could be completely different years later. So I feel like he and I in some ways are different people than we were when we first married, and not in a bad way, but that means that we're constantly getting to know each other and relate to each other differently. Certainly when we first got married, we both were I think, eating and doing the same thing. So, we sort of chilling and living life. And and now, he is, I think we're both on a health journey. I think he is definitely much more disciplined and committed than I am. Not saying I'm not at all, but still just even our outlook on food and just life in general, I think is a little different than it was when we first got married. And so that means that we are getting to know new things about one another. And I didn't expect that necessarily when we first married.
Yeah, I think I don't think you plan for that because you're, like Dr. Ramsey said, you're in love and you don't think about the finances, you don't think about that. But one thing this is my second marriage. So for me, I tell my current wife, like, I don't by no means think I'm an extra because this is my second marriage. You're a different woman than she was. So I still have to get to know you. I think it's important that when you going through things that you still allow the person space to grow. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. You're going to change. The woman that you are now, you're not going to be 5 years from now, and you have to allow for that. And the same thing for me. I'm not going to be the same man 5 years from now. You may like a different ice cream. Like you might like, I don't know, Praline and cream now, but 2 years from now, you be like, I don't want that. And I might bring you a scoop, be like, well, when did that change? You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that, because you go through, you're living your life and doing your thing. You don't know that until it just changes on, you know what I'm saying? But you have to allow room for the other person to grow. You're still individuals. Dr. Ramsey, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I think for sure, it's inevitable. I mean, unless you get ready to die, you're going to keep growing. You know what I mean? So, and in your 20s, I always like to refer to 20s as our years of exploration, because, you know, we've come into adulthood. So we're trying to test the waters in a lot of areas in our 20s. And so as you hit that latter part of the 20s, going into 30s, you know, you get a little bit more settled in your thinking because you've experienced some things, you know, you've touched the hot water and the fire, and hopefully, you know, not to put your hand on the stove by the time you turn 30. And so I think you know, it's inevitable that we continue to grow and evolve as we have our life experiences. You know, sometimes it's health challenges, sometimes it's, you know, childbirth, sometimes it's, you know, going through a crisis or a loss, or any of those things can definitely shape us and help us to see things in life very differently from what we did when we were a little bit younger, or even last year. You know what I mean? So like for me, like for instance, the pandemic, you know, put a whole lot of stuff into perspective for me that I don't even understand why other people can't even embrace it. Like people just resume life as usual. And, you know, we all get comfortable back to what's familiar, but some things should have, you know, things are not the same. Like we've all gone through something that none of us have never experienced. And the losses alone was what kind of like made me kind of, you know, take a look at what I was doing a little bit differently, and not waiting on stuff to happen because we don't know our time here. Kind of just being more intentional about, you know, and that's still a work in progress for me, but just being more intentional about making the day and the time count. So definitely we should expect growth, unless, like I said, we getting ready to die tomorrow, we should expect opportunities to grow. And I do like what you said about reiterating and giving each other grace to do that, because, you know, it doesn't always happen. Well, most of the time it's not going to happen in the same journey. Like the paths are not going to necessarily align at all, because you're not identical twins, you're not, you know, the same people. So definitely one person may be, like you talked about the food, you know, commitment journey, one person may be at 3 and you still at 2, and we have to allow grace for that and not have our expectations imposed on that other person.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I didn't recognize is that you take on each other's, like, the good stuff, you know what I mean, the blessings, so to speak, but you also take on the challenges, you know, or you know, family, generational curses and things like that. And so I didn't recognize that I would feel for her with things that she's feeling. So if it is that, you know, she's frustrated with, you know, a group of people or a segment of people in, you know, her life, that I find myself being frustrated that like I can't do something about that, you know what I mean? Or that, like, you know, I might be happy in my life, but there's something in her life that is making her sad. It takes a toll on me.
Yeah. You know what, Omari, I feel I'm not calling you professor, but so this is every time I say Omari, I'm like, ugh. So, but
Omari,
Omari. I know. But as men, we like to fix stuff. We love to fix stuff. And I totally identify where you're coming from. And sometimes that frustrates our partners because that's not what they're looking for. That's not what they're looking for. We want to fix it, and then we get mad because we can't do anything about it. And then that turns into a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we have to be able to recognize those moments and, you know, be present for that. Because we generally, that's just in our nature. That's in our DNA. That's how we were built. We want to fix things.
And sometimes it makes men feel inadequate or in an uncomfortable space because, okay, if I can't fix it or you don't want me to fix it, then what do I do? So right. I don't know what to do with that energy, that space, because, you know, and you may add, I don't know, you may get to the 3 responses later on. I don't know, but it makes men feel.
Talk about the 3 responses that men have.
So in saying that, you know, the work that I do in observation, men generally have 3 responses to things. One is nothing's wrong and they kind of shut down. The other one is defensiveness because you're feeling attacked, or when you're being confronted, or some may not even be being confronted. It's just that somebody's bringing something to your attention. And the third response is usually anger that covers all the other stuff like rejection, abandonment, hurt, you know, low self-esteem, all those things that men don't generally have the language to connect words with the feelings. So I don't know, those are those three responses are also what society has accepted, you know what I mean, from men. And a lot of things have shaped that in our own families and as a society. We reared men to not be emotional, not show emotions, not cry, not this, not that. Well, what do you do with all those tucked away feelings that I wasn't allowed to feel or express? So now I don't have the language to express it. And so I just acted out in some kind of way. And it may not be, every act out is not a detrimental act out, but it's an act out. So if I can't fix it, which, provide and protect, that's what men, we're reared to provide, they're reared to provide and protect. So if I can't fix a problem, it's like I have hands, but they're tied. What do I do with that? Mm-hmm. So definitely it creates an energy, uncomfortable space for men. And then I think they usually just shut down. Well, I can't do anything about it. So, just
how is that energy interpreted by women?
It's frustrating because what I really want you to do, if I don't want you to fix it, then I really want you to just hear me, be a safe space for me, let me figure it out. So it can be frustrating. Like I want it to go away. I want something done, but in that moment, I'm really trying to figure that out. So give me it so it can create a disconnect, because what I really want, I might not really be communicating it very well and effectively. So I get frustrated, and then in turn you're frustrated because, well, I don't know what you want. What do you want me to do? What do you want from me? So it's kind of like, again, observing those things that are not said so that you can learn your partner enough to say, oh, you know what? She dealing with something today. Let me give her a moment. Or he's, like my husband, he's big on, I'm saying, what's wrong? He's like, nothing, I'm good. But then his energy and his body language is saying something is wrong. But, I remember years ago, I used to say stuff like, what's something look like it's on your mind? He's like, ain't nothing on my mind. And I'm like, well, you look like something on your mind. So what's, tell me what's going on. And I even told him before, like, I feel like I don't have all of you, because, it felt like he was keeping stuff from, not secrets, but just, wouldn't let me in kind of thing. Until I went to a convention for our church and I did a workshop there, and I brought that up, and all the men was like, well, yeah, we have the luxury of just sitting down and not thinking about a thing. So I heard all those men say that, I would have went to my grave thinking that's not true. How can you wake up every day and not think about nothing? How can you do that? For women, we don't shut down like that. So, and some women can do it. I've met women who say, I don't think about nothing when I'm done, but most women don't do that. So until I heard a room full of men say that, I would have never, ever believed that when he told me I ain't thinking about nothing, that he really not thinking about nothing. So, it's just how we're kind of wired. So
yeah. We're getting close to the end, but I do got a couple more questions I want to ask. What do you recognize and appreciate about your spouse? And so what is that? What is it that you recognize and appreciate about your spouse?
I think I recognize and appreciate her willingness to be kind of down for our family. I shouldn't say kind of, but be down for our family, even if it is something that is going to, shake what is comfortable to her. If it's good for our family, like, she's down for it. So if it is, us, moving, or if it is us just doing, anything, like if it's deciding to travel somewhere that is not, where another group of family members, is going, that she's like, well, if this is what our family is doing, that, like, I would like to be over there with them, or I like to, remain living in this place. But if it's for the greater good of our family, then I'll
that sister's been taking one for the team for a long time, baby. Been taking one for the team a long time. What about you, Kanika? What is it that you recognize and appreciate about your husband?
I think I recognize how confident and self-assured Omari is, and I do appreciate that about him, because if he sets his mind to something and knows he wants to do it, then he will go after it without worrying about the what ifs. Even if the what if it doesn't work out, he also is so confident and self-assured that he never hesitates or has an issue advocating for himself or for our family, which I appreciate. So he's definitely, I think, has established himself just as a really, I think, just a bona fide leader, protector, things that I would look for in a husband. He has established himself to be early on. Whether it's dealing with our household bills or something like that, or issues that we're having in public, or even just issues with the family, he always, I think, does a good job taking initiative and using his voice, which is a good inspiration for me, because I have typically been the exact opposite, but for our son also.
Okay. Do you guys, with having an 11-year-old son, do you guys have to plan for like intimacy? The time. Do y'all have to plan that?
Did it right away.
That's a tough one for us because we really don't have a lot of babysitters. So he's always with us. Like even when we travel for the most part, especially now that my mother-in-law is unfortunately gone. We're trying to work on that area.
Okay.
Because it is very predictable.
Yeah.
So I would say right now it is very planned. And neither one of us love that, but
right. Yeah. So with that being said, like, how is it like for me and my wife? It's normally she's around me a little bit more. She's more engaging. She's complimenting me. I might get a couple rubs on the shoulder, my head. Lets me know, okay, hey, I need we got to get it together. Like, what is your communication? What is your language? Or y'all writing it down, you passing her a note, like, okay, I need to see you at 6 o'clock.
There have been times when we have texted. We've texted if our son is here, and like we've gotten him squared away if it's with lunch or his piano practice or something like that. But outside of that, unfortunately, it is very planned, and as she said, that is something that is a challenge that we don't love. I mean, it's like we know that we're about to go upstairs to get ready to have sex and go to bed, and it's not that we don't enjoy the sex, but it feels way too planned.
Yeah. Like Ramsey, before we close it out, I do want you to kind of touch on that. Like, I mean, for people who are listening, like, how do you navigate that? Like, is that something you just do for the time being? Because I mean, they got a long time before they're empty nesters.
Yeah, it makes it tough for them because they don't have the external support. But I would say to kind of focus on making the small things, the things, maybe you can't go out, for extended time at, a hotel overnight because you don't have a babysitter. So just trying to make the small things, the things that matter. And it is kind of, I think for what I like that they said is that they are both on the same page with, yes, this is uncomfortable, but when we have our time together, we're trying to make it a great time together. And you're right. That's a situation that they, their child is probably 6 or 7 years out from going away to college. So you just have to keep communicating and make the best of it that you can. And when you can grab those moments, make the small thing, the thing, you know what I mean? So that's just where they are. That's their reality right now without a lot of external family support to kind of help with taking that on for them. So, and until you build trusting relationships with other people, this is their reality.
Yeah, and just being, and in those moments, just being present for each other. I mean, even though it's planned, just being present for one another. And I think that's important. Well, we have come to the end of our session. I really appreciate you guys showing up and allowing us this space into your life, into your marriage, and hopefully the people who are listening to this gain some value, because I definitely learned a lot. Every time I do these, I learn something because everybody's marriages is different. What you how you look at people look at my marriage and they see something completely different, but you're not in my shoes. You don't know what you see. It took work to get here. You know what I'm saying? And it's still taking work to maintain it. So I definitely appreciate you guys coming on and allowing us, in your space and just sharing your knowledge and things things that you've gone through in your marriage. And, and like I said, it's still a journey. It's still an uphill battle. We're still trying to work it out. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Definitely. So I hope, you guys enjoyed it as well. It was definitely a treat for me. Dr. Ramsey, do you have any takeaways before we close it out?
I think that the takeaway for me would be, for Kanika to, like she said, trying to work on prioritizing some self-care for herself and making like I said, the small things, the thing, like just kind of really being present in the moments that you have together. And I really enjoyed meeting the both of you and talking to the both of you. You are a lovely couple.
And y'all different than the other couples we did in the interview. I didn't talk to.
They're a little bit more reserved.
Yeah, much more reserved.
Yeah. So, but it's that's a great thing too, to get all kinds of sides of marriage. Like you said, everybody's experience is a different experience. So I really enjoyed talking to the both of you. And I appreciate you also for sharing your heart today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate you all.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So Dr. Ramsey, close it out with some prayer.
Okay. We just absolutely. We just thank the Lord for this fellowship today. We thanking him for this opportunity to not only receive, but to also put out to be a blessing to someone else. And that we pray that our efforts go forward and to help someone who may be seeking help to build their marriage, to keep their family together. We thank God for the opportunity on today. And we just ask him in Jesus' name, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Amen. Amen. So we just thank God for this time together.
Definitely for this couple. Again, I appreciate you. Well, that brings us to the end. Again, thank you guys for coming on. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And we will definitely want to have you back at some point in time, if you don't mind coming back onto the show, and we'll talk about some other stuff. But thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Professor. All right, it's nice meeting you again, Kanika.
Yes, likewise.
Take care, y'all.
All right, y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody for staying behind another successful episode of Black Marriage Chronicles. It's funny now. It was a lovely couple, Omari and Kanika Jackson. It was great to meet them. So hopefully you gained some value. If there was anything that you want more details about, as far as any of the couples that you've seen on this channel, ask us. We would love to have them back on and maybe get some more context. Or if you just want a certain subject that you would like us to talk about as it relates to marriage, let us know that as well. Leave some comments down below, questions, concerns, whatever that may be. We definitely want to make sure we address that. But thank you for staying, and I'll leave you in peace.